Yeah. Hey everybody. It's March 15th. It's the American Micro Podcast. I am Anthony Pago. I'm still here in Oklahoma City. How's it going, Rodney? Where you at?
I'm here looking out the window at the third world in Mexico. Um, Down here for a couple months, maybe the rest of my life. No, I don't know, man. I don't know how long I'm going to be here. But yeah, man, I'm in Mexico, somewhere in between Tecate and Tijuana, in some expat village. Not really, but kind of, you know. Just trying to take in this third world country with this first world vibe, because there's a boatload of Californians living down here, man. What was it? I think it was Friday. I got to the border at like 2 o'clock, and I didn't get to my place until 7. It took me 5 hours to get to my place. Coming, and that normally, bro, 5 hours, bro.
Yeah.
5 hours.
Yeah, that doesn't
Yeah.
sound like fun.
Mm.
Well,
It wasn't.
so
But
at
go
least you
ahead.
don't have to worry about getting on a school board or anything down there. You don't have to worry about fighting these crazy
Ah, book bannings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
they
you
can't.
selected this topic at the end of our last podcast, and I think it's a good one. There's actually been a little bit of like movement
Yeah.
on it, so it's not like an old topic. It's very current. What's your initial instincts on what's going on? Why don't you tell me? Did you look up any of this like stuff and get definitions
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
anything like that?
Moms of Liberty, it, no matter how much they want to try and downplay it, they are a political organization. A bunch of white women and some black women, but mostly white American women who are by nature probably well connected, very well off, and they don't want little Johnny or little Sally, their sons and daughters, to learn about the truth. So they ban books about Martin Luther King and Roberto Clemente. Are you serious? You're banning books about baseball players. So,
Yeah.
you know, there's a ton of criticisms, right? And I mean, this organization is perceived, not perceived. I mean, they would tell you that they're perceived as, or better yet, what they've done is they've excluded certain voices of certain communities that have never really had a voice from their ad. They don't want these communities to have any type of advocacy, right? None whatsoever. Like they don't want these communities to have a voice, right? So, I mean, if an organization like this prioritizes certain issues over others, critics argue that you know it neglects broader societal concerns. In other words, like the child in Oklahoma, who they are now saying was a suicide. What did you hear about that? The child,
Yeah, I just saw
yeah,
the
yeah,
news
they're saying
report,
that. Anyways,
medical report. Hmm.
yeah. So people like that child will never have a voice in America if it were up to moms of liberty, right? They polarize. Let's put it like this: they polarize the BIPOC community, the Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBTQ. They have these women are extreme, bro. You know what I'm saying? Their ideologies and their rhetoric contribute to polarization and division within society. So, I mean, that being said, what does that lead to? I mean, when you talk shit, and it's not true, because it's just we look, we live in a society where people of different races preside, right? So all you're doing with this misinformation that you're throwing out there, is basically you're trying to destabilize culture and society, the cultures and societies of other minorities in this country, and you're trying to undermine um, public trust and discourse. And because a lot of these women have um, a lack of transparency um, regarding its funding sources or its decision making processes, they can't be trusted because they're lying. They're literally lying about what America's about is about and what it should be when it comes to everyone having a voice in this country. They're biased. Um, I mean, and they align themselves with the Republican Party. I mean, yeah, you could say, oh, both parties are bad, and they are. You know, but the Republican Party is just a hot mess right now. You know, and if that's where they want to be, if that's who they are and that's how they want to be seen, that's not a good look, man. It's not a good look. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned like the goal of kind of undermining the movement to be inclusive, to let LGBTQ or frankly any at-risk minority group, and by minority in this instance, I'm not specifically referring to race. I just mean any not larger, well protected in group, more like any out group that is being attacked at the moment.
Mm.
They definitely are using asymmetrical warfare, and they're using it as if they are. I say as if they are acting as lobbyists. They are not registering themselves as lobbyists, but they are well funded by, like you said, conservative groups, and paid handsomely. The kind of upper tier organizers are paid anywhere between $40,000 and $50,000, and then they get like around $6,000 in benefits, according to reports, financial reports. And they're defined as well. I'll just read this here. The Southern Poverty Law Center, civil rights advocate, has labeled Moms for Liberty a far-right anti-government organization with close political alliances and ties to extremist groups to broaden its reach and spread its message of anti-inclusion and hate. And I think that does a pretty good job of boiling down, what they are. But they are funded by some really really rich bigwigs uh, that are Republicans or fund Republicans, and so they've actually gotten into a little bit of trouble. When I say they, I mean specifically in Florida, because they have chapters all over. There are chapters in almost every state that are doing that
Yeah.
have been doing fairly well, not quite as well within the last year. They started in 2021 during the COVID thing, and they did pretty good for money wise, like getting investments, getting contributions, being funded. During 2021, 2022, they were still doing fairly well, but it kind of leveled off, and it started to go down in 2023. In some places are still getting funded pretty well, and you're starting to see some kind of pushback today as students and teachers and parents are getting extremely sick of their shenanigans, and just kind of the politicization of like our school boards and our libraries, and even on the government level, DeSantis appointed one of the founders, Tina, I think it's Deskovich, to an
Yeah.
oversight committee in Florida, and she actually got like removed as a candidate because it's become clear that um, she's acting as a lobbyist, and this is like an ethics committee. I think is what that was. Let's see if I've got that information. But yeah, she was rejected, and this is the first time one of DeSantis's appointments in his 5 years has been like has failed to be appointed, and it's specifically a Moms for Liberty co-founder. So this is a big deal. Finally, there is a little bit of kind of pushback on both the governmental level and also on the state board level. There, we'll get into some stats in a little bit, but I think people are
Mm.
getting tired of having this obvious hate group who's using this asymmetrical warfare. And for anybody who doesn't know what that is, that's like when you hear about China or Russia using online tactics to what Rodney said earlier, and what you said, Rodney, um, divide and conquer kind of tactics. And so you don't necessarily need to use tanks and planes, bombs. They're expensive, when you can just get people online and sow uncivil discourse by pushing some crazy ideas or making them more visible. And that's what these it's a very minor, it's a very small population of typically women, but not just women, who are getting into very loud positions and sowing civil discourse in this like very negative fashion. People are getting tired of it, but it has worked uh, quite a bit for a couple of years. I think they got their timing a little wrong. People are getting sick of it well before the election. So if the aim, it seemed to be this kind of asymmetrical warfare thing, to kind of like feed into that Ron DeSantis anti-woke thing. Clearly, it's not a big leap to consider that it's one of the many tools under their belt to fight this culture war, because Ron DeSantis appointed one of the co-founders to this ethics board, or tried to anyway. And he also has appointed somebody from their organization recently to a Florida position to look at the library books and do some more bannings, just like Oklahoma did with that Haya Rychek gal. What was that?
Hmm.
Libs of TikTok. Yeah. So so there's a lot of movement. It's still ongoing. They seem to be getting their butts kicked newly, and a lot in the election year. They lost a lot of elections, but there's been a lot of change in how popular they are. I'll leave it at that, I guess. So I do have a few videos I'd like you to react to. Did you bring any videos to show the class?
No, I don't have any civics videos to show the class, but go for it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so but the first one I want to show you, like, first I want people to understand that these positions are extremely boring. When you get onto like a school board, and they're supposed to be, these are supposed to be the most mundane positions like America has to offer you. Local politics is extremely important. Anybody who's been an advocate for voting and for a long time in American politics has said you also have to do local level you know uh, like time investment. Get out there and vote for people who do your research, find out who's not an idiot, go vote for them locally, because those people get power and they move their way up the ladder and they end up getting in bigger and bigger positions on the state level, from the city level to the state level to the federal level. Sometimes they skip over a couple rungs of those ladders and get up really high really fast, as we saw with Donald Trump. Um, so there are these meetings at schools, and these women, well, these people, I should say now, decided some years back during COVID that they would get elected to these school boards. It's not very hard to do when nobody cares, and nobody wants to run for it. And this was their outlet to affect change. So it's supposed to be boring, but they have made it very contentious, very annoying. They've brought up all of these insane ideas, like librarians and teachers are out there. They say grooming children as if this is an actual constant thing throughout America. And somebody decided to give them a little piece of their own medicine. So this is Walter Masterson, who you're going to see showing up at one of the school boards and adding his 2 cents to the conversation.
The other day, I caught my son reading a book that is basically pornography. You know where he got it? This school's library. This book is filled with pornography. It advocates for the destruction of the nuclear family. Let me read you some passages, and you tell me if this is a book you want your children to read. He shall lie all night between my breasts, his left hand under my head, and his right doth embrace me. Thy young breasts are like 2 young roes that are twins, which feed among the lilies. Come, blow upon my garden. Thy stature is like a palm tree, and thy breasts are clusters of grapes. There's another chapter where 2 daughters get their father drunk so they can have sex with him. First one, then the other. They show both scenes. That sounds like one of those magazines you get at a gas station. Not great children's material. Here's my favorite one. For his daughter's hand in marriage, King Saul wanted no less than 100 Philistine foreskins. David, really wanting to become son-in-law, took his men and killed enough Philistines to bring back 200 foreskins. David counted them all in front of the king, and for that, he was awarded the princess. This book is filled with incest, torture porn, socialism, and rape. Parents, you should ask yourselves, do you want to bring this filth around your child? And another thing, why is this school teaching my child that pterodactyls are dinosaurs? Pterodactyls are pterosaurs.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
He was talking about the Bible. Yeah, dude.
That's right.
Dude, the Bible's full of some. I'm telling you, man, the Bible is like everything from incest to slavery, dude. I mean, like, it's just dude. Look, that's literally that's what the 2 women who started this. What are their names? Hold on. What are their names? Tina Deskovich and Tiffany Justice and Classic. ALACIK. 2021. So these women knew what they were doing. They knew they could care. Look, man, they could care less about it. And I'm just going to say this. When it comes to the United States of America, these women, these white patriarchal women who uphold patriarchy in this country, I mean, that's all they care about, is keeping this world lily white and making sure that the historical values of the United States that matter are never heard from it. That's their deal. That's how they're coming at this. They want to make sure that every school in America, the curriculum is so whitewashed and so like they don't want anything to affect their what's the word I'm looking for? The mind of their sons and daughters. There's another word I'm looking for, but anyways, yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, you know, it's they don't care about anyone else but themselves and the people that look like them. Like, for instance, I'm sure you heard about. I think it was one of the moms of liberty in Florida, who was accused of rape,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she was the person that he was accused of raping. She had the three of them had a threesome. I mean, check this out, dude. You can't make this up, right?
Yeah. Okay.
They
Well,
had a
I've got
threesome.
I've got a clip. I've got a clip for that,
Go
and
ahead.
we can actually see her face and hear a little bit of that. So you guys who are watching this later can
Yeah.
judge for yourselves.
Bridget Ziegler.
Know who their candidates are for school board, know where they stand, and hold them accountable.
She's a co-founder of the conservative group Moms for Liberty, and on Tuesday was asked to voluntarily resign from the Sarasota County School Board.
If you were in support of everyone having, these illicit type of relationships, then that wouldn't matter.
Ziegler, a close ally of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, helped author Florida's parental rights and education law, dubbed by critics as the Don't Say Gay bill. It removed discussion of sexual orientation and identity from public schools' curriculum. DeSantis also appointed her to the board that manages Disney's special taxing district.
The resolution recommends that Bridget Ziegler immediately take all steps necessary to voluntarily resign.
Now, she's under intense criticism for a sex scandal involving her husband, Christian Ziegler, the chair of the Florida Republican Party, and a woman accusing him of rape. According to an affidavit, the woman told police that there was a planned sexual encounter with both Christian and Bridget Ziegler in October. Bridget canceled, leading the other woman to also cancel, but Christian still showed up at the woman's home. Bridget, who hasn't been accused of criminal wrongdoing, admitted the couple had a previous three-way sexual encounter with the woman, quote, over a year ago, and that it only happened one time.
Ms. Ziegler, you have tarnished the soul of the school board here with hypocrisy and duplicity.
Ziegler sat stoically through the 3 hours of public comment at a school board meeting Tuesday night.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, come on, man. Come on. Oh my God. Dude, I mean,
So-
you just forget about
there's a lot of good
Ugh.
there's a lot of good comments in reference to this when it occurred. I loved that instead of just pure vitriol and mockery about her situation at home, both online and at these meetings where she was, confronted like face to face, people made sure to tell her what's on trial here. It's not really on trial. What's being discussed here is not your sex life. It's not what's happening at home. Nobody's here to make you feel bad, embarrassed about what you did. Other than her husband should feel incredibly embarrassed and bad about what he did. But her lifestyle choice is not what's like. There's not a witch trial for that. It's the hypocrisy and coming in and using this like fictitious status of like, a holier than thou mom who's looking out for the kids, when in fact that's not at all what's happening. They are using protect the kids as a usual moral panic by the right, now the far right and the right, to subversively attack at-risk children, and adults, but gay, lesbian, bi, everybody in this, and this rolls down to minorities as well. My group, your group. So this affects everybody, and let's be clear here. When they use these tactics to attack children and just kind of the norms that are being built, the new norms that are being built, which is it's okay to be in a threesome, in a throuple, as consenting adults, or LGBTQ in school. When they attack these type of norms, their children go to school and replicate this hate that they're seeing online and at home, and then everybody's children are at risk now. They're, if you think your kids who are like white and Christian, and if you think they're morally great, doing a great job and just not at risk for anything like becoming gay or whatever, or maybe because they're not gay, they're safe and never going to get beat up, you're wrong. They are creating hostility in all locations, at school, after school, at home. People just ramp up the violence when you use these tactics. So that's what she's being attacked for, not for what she did, decided to do at home. So I love that people have been making that clear, that nobody cares if she's having a threesome. People do seem to care a great deal that her husband did some really ugly, dirty stuff, and that the state, I think it's the state district attorney, is a coward and has decided not to press charges. That's something that happened this week, I think. So yeah, it's not a good situation, and she should be ashamed. And frankly, she shouldn't be getting paid these huge sums by conservative groups, and she shouldn't be considered for positions that oversee, walking dogs, let alone what books are being, considered by librarians. So, yeah.
Well, it's a lack of accountability, right? I mean, if an organization fails to hold its members or leaders accountable for their actions, it undermines everything. It undermines their credibility, their effectiveness, and it undermines the reason they're even here, right? So, I mean, look, man, you can't. I mean, you've got to look at this country in a certain way. No. Yeah, you do. I'm sorry. Some people would say no. I'm saying, yeah, you do. Because, I don't know, since the 16th century, this is what it's been about, right? It's been about, certain people having their way and not being accountable for all the unjust and immoral things that they've done to the greater society, okay? And that's what this is, okay? You're banning books by Toni Morrison. You're banning books about Martin Luther King. You're banning books about Jackie Robinson, about Roberto Clemente. You're banning all of these books that Black children, they need to know their history. What's wrong with that? Someone explain to me what is wrong. Because I guarantee you, dude, we did not have Black history when I was in elementary school. We didn't have it when I was in junior high school. We didn't have it in high school. I took my first African-American class, history class at the University of Maryland. So I had been in a situation where for literally the first 18 years of my life, there was no account. I only knew what my parents had told me about the way they grew up. There was no social media, there was no Google. But what I did understand was that just based on the color of my skin, I was having a really hard time with some of my little sick white friends who just didn't like my ass, because I was Black, and every other day I was fighting, inward this, inward that, right? So, and then all of a sudden it's just anecdotal. It's an experience. It's not, dude. It's surely not anecdotal. Okay. And historically, it's factual. The things that I went through growing up in the 60s and the 70s. That's just the way it is. You can't get around that. And for a group of women who have children, for them to sit there and say, I only care about my children, I could give a fuck less about yours. Wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, The problem is the only thing I disagree with there, and I agree with what you're saying. I think it's more important to focus. I wish that they would only care about their students in reality. They may claim that they care about their students and what they're reading in school, but when given the option to uh, just prohibit their kids alone from not reading these books that they're putting on ban lists, and they'll say it's not a ban, but it's a ban by definition. Even if it's temporary, it's still a ban. They will skip over answering that question, will deflect and move on to another talking point. They're famously criticized for doing that during a 60-minute interview recently as
Well, I
well,
saw that
where they
interview. I
were
saw that interview.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
they were asked like for minutes, uncomfortable minutes, to explain what agenda is being pushed by the woke left, by the far left, by whom, by teachers, by unions, teachers unions, by whomever. What is the agenda that is being pushed? And they were slack-jawed, and they kept flipping through their papers trying to figure out what
They couldn't even
what response
they
to
couldn't
come up
even
with.
define the word woke, dude. They couldn't even define the
Yeah,
word woke. They couldn't, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, I don't think you're disagreeing with me, dude. I don't think there's any pushback here. I mean, I think we're speaking the same language. I believe, and it's not something that I think, I believe that the fact that the things that have happened to Native Americans, indigenous people of this country, the things that have happened to brown people, the Chinese, Asians when they came over, and of course the things that happened to Africans when they left Africa and came to the United States as slaves, is historical, and
yeah,
it's tragic. And until these women, these white women, understand and see, okay, let me just back up a little bit. I can't be nice to these people, dude. Like, I cannot be nice to these people. I'm not going to be. That's over. You know, they have waded into a pond of just deceit and just lies and cruelty, and now they're trying to somehow swim to the other side of the frickin' to other side of the pond, and they're like waiting in the middle, like, dude, I don't want to go because we've got to keep this lie alive. If we leave the pond, everyone's going to know that we're just full of shit. And we already know you are. We already know what that pond is filled with. You know, we already know where you're coming from. You know, it's been like this. Like you said, you know, what comes around goes around. You know, it was like this a minute ago. It's like this now, and it's unfortunate, man. It's unfortunate. I mean, you know, they're anti-science. They're hypocrites. Um, you know, they can't even they don't even know what their values are, dude.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
if you're for
They are.
one child, you might as well. You need to be for all of them. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're right. They are very, very, very bad at performing live. They're good with their talk points because they get handed their talking points online, and then once you confront them live, they freeze. And if you press them on something you want answered, something specific, they can't. It falls apart. They are completely unable because, like you said, there are no real underlying like ethics and morals that they've had to spend years understanding deeply, assessing, and then coming to a conclusion on. They're essentially, this is the modern version of like, and I'm not attacking women, and these aren't all women. There's men involved in this too, but it's the modern day version of like
Absolutely.
bored housewives with the phones who are playing the gossip chain gang, except now they're doing it in library schools, and they're getting political because this gets them attention, and that's what they want. They do not want to spend the time investigating all of these topics in depth and researching. If they were interested in that, they would be able to respond, and they would have answers for these deep questions. I'll pull up a video to give you an example of one of their co-founders being unable to answer a question directly.
The main character, what's the name of the main character in All Boys Are Blue?
You're asking me right now.
You just
the
gave
name?
me very specific information about this book, so you're presenting yourself as somebody expert.
It's the gentleman.
Hold on.
The main,
Who's the main character in the book?
the main character is the author.
What's his name?
George, I believe, is his first
Because
name.
you're giving me very specific information that is.
You're
presenting
asking me to
yourself as an
remember the
expert.
name of an author.
You
the
just
name of the
remembered
author
very specific
doesn't
things.
joy.
Here's my
We're
question.
talking about
Here's my question.
You didn't answer my
no,
question.
No, I'm going to answer your
Great.
question.
I would love to hear that.
Absolutely. Well, I'm interviewing you and you're not interviewing me. So let's just make sure it's a conversation. Okay,
great.
So what I'm saying to you is that as you are not an expert in this book,
I don't
or
have to
hold
be an
on.
expert
No,
to know
hold
that
on a second.
dildos aren't
One
appropriate
moment,
for public
one moment.
school. I mean, come
This
on, let's
book
get real.
Is a full context story, as you said, of the author's experience. Why is it your right, or a Moms for Liberty activist's right, to say that a parent who wants their child to have access to this book, which gives a personal experience of this author, why doesn't a liberal parent, for instance, or a parent of an LGBTQ kid, why don't they have a right for their child to just have access to this book? Why is it your right to say they can't?
So again, we're talking about.
And
Joy, you
each
said you'd
parent,
answer- Joy, you said
one
you'd let me
moment, no.
answer.
Each parent has to decide what is appropriate for their child to read. So I want you to answer. I'm going to ask it
let's
one more
have
time.
Right.
What is your right to tell a parent who wants their child, who might feel seen by this story? Why don't they have the right? Why don't they have the right as a parent to say, my child can have access to this book?
If a child feels seen by this story, that means that they have been the victim of a predator. That means that they have either been raped by a family member, they've experienced.
And your proof of that is what?
You just said that
What's
if
your
a child
proof of
feels
that?
seen by this story. What I'm saying, Joy,
you're now making assumptions about it.
Joy, but if a child has been, we should do a lot better than put a book on a library
Now you're literally
shelf.
creating a story behind a child that you don't know. Let me.
So she refused to answer the question. Why do you get to decide, or your group, or some list on the internet that you all share that has the list of books that you try to get banned locally? Why does any of that have the opportunity? Why does it get the opportunity to decide what my child or X, Y, and Z's child gets to read, and not just your child? Why is this applied? Why do your ideas, your morals, your ethics need to be applied to everybody? Why can't we all just decide for ourselves? And then she goes on to deflect by going, oh my gosh, in this hypothetical situation, to explain the question, you've just told me that a child must have been assaulted. So she deflects entirely and goes to moral outrage because it's her knee-jerk reaction, considering she doesn't have any actual, foundation on which to base this idea of freedom.
Well, they're intolerant people, dude. They have no tolerance for anything or anyone that doesn't toe the line all the way to the bitter end. If an organization promotes that kind of intolerance or discrimination against certain groups, then we need to criticize the hell out of them, dude. That's literally what it comes down to. Like you're the end of the day. Let me think about it. How many different types of people do we have in this country? How many different religions do we have in this country? How is making this country a Christian?
A couple thousand.
Yeah. How is making this country a Christian nation going to work? How is that going to work? How are you going to tell a group of people whose families, culturally speaking, are Islamic or Jewish or pagan or Catholic or whatever, Okay, how are you going to tell them that Christianity is the only way and you have to renounce your allegiance to Allah or Buddha? Or how are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? How are you going
Yeah.
to tell someone who just, believes? Yeah,
Well, I mean,
go
you were
ahead. I'm
right.
sorry.
It's no, you're absolutely fine. I just wanted to back up your claim that it's intolerance. Their intolerance. The only way that you can enact their specific ideals on book bans and on anything else that comes after that is only through intolerance, especially considering what you just said. There are so many variations of religions, people who aren't religious, so many different types of people, be it who they decide to love, how they decide to dress, how they decide to act, what names they go by, what the color of their skin is, what cultures they were raised in, or identify with. And I thought that this was very apropos. It proves the point that you're making. Here is another Moms for Liberty advocate telling us pretty clearly how she feels about people outside of her belief systems.
Have to have special IEP meetings with a counselor. They have to be put into separate classrooms. And I understand because it's a different type of education for children with those disabilities, but I think that for children that identify differently, there should also be like a specialized something for them so that they feel that they're important enough that they're being counseled.
And why not have that conversation that you're explaining in front of everyone?
I think for the same reason why teachers wouldn't just bring a child with autism in front of the class and be like, hey, he's got autism. Embarrassment.
But what is, in your eyes, embarrassing about being gay?
It's not that it's something to be embarrassed about, but I'm sure that you understand a lot of kids that are young and feel gay, some of them are shamed.
Because they can't openly talk about it in their classroom.
Right, which I understand, but there's just a way to go about it. That everybody is respected.
So she tries to win points by sounding inclusive, but her argument was maybe LGBTQ people, gay people need to have their own classrooms like autistic people because they shouldn't have to be made to feel embarrassed if somebody was to stand up and say this person is gay. And then she had to dance around the fact that it's not embarrassing to be gay. And then at the very end, she sold out the internal, wheels turning, the dialogue inside of her head by saying, you know what, it boils down to there's a certain way that things are or they should be. And that is where all of this comes from. It comes from a place of bigotry, that old school conservative mentality that, well, this is just the way we do things.
Well, it's the undermining of what I would call democratic principles and the manipulation of like public opinion. That's just because you know what? In this democracy, which is the Moms of Liberty democracy, only our views count, not yours. And at the end of the day, we just want your child to go away. Or we need to put him in a class with other people just like him. Okay?
Right. So
then,
separate but equal.
Yeah, but on top, yeah, exactly, dude. Exactly. And then we're gonna lie about it all and manipulate public opinion, okay, and make sure that we just want it to be fair for everyone. Okay, Deborah, Karen, Sally, whatever your name is, I'm sorry, man. I have a hard time with these people, bro. I have a hard time with these people. I mean, ultimately, any organization like this needs to be freaking criticized for who they are. I mean, they're liars, they're racists, they don't advocate for anyone except people that look like them and think like them, pretty much. And no, it's just That's not the way the world works, man. It's never worked like that. There have been trans people and gay people, homosexual men and lesbian women for thousands of years. Thousands. You guys go, dude. What you're doing is what every other colonizer has done for the past 600 years. You go to a country, you take it over by force, and then you destroy the history of those people. That's exactly what you're doing. That's exactly what you want to do. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yep, that's exactly right. So let's do a compare and contrast. That was, one of the, tattooed, young, trying to sound progressive and hip Moms for Liberty advocates telling us all that maybe we should be separate but equal. And then here are some, I would say, fairly enraged LGBTQ parents who actually have kids in school.
For the record, have any of your kids ever come home and said, I am feeling peer pressure to be gay or trans?
No. Naomi Lopez is a speech pathologist and works in a District 11 school.
First of all, we're not going around saying, okay, now I want you to think about it. What gender are you?
Yeah.
Like, that's not happening.
They say it's happening.
It's not. My personal beliefs, my personal viewpoint on the world does not come into the classroom. We are professionals with degrees in pedagogy.
And she's also the mom of a transgender student.
So, I'm sorry, can you ask me again? Because I'm getting pissed off.
What, you want to talk about that first? Why does it make you emotional to talk about this stuff?
So I get emotional when other people who don't have children, who are transgender or queer, place an assumption on it for the sake of persecution based on their own belief.
When you're putting all this curriculum everywhere and you're telling kids, hey, you could come talk to me behind your parents' back. I got your back. I mean, there's a clear move to bring more of that into our schools, and it's just not the school's place.
So, what I feel like you're strongly implying, and I would like to get your take on, because I don't want to attribute something that you don't think, but to me it sounds like you're saying there's some kind of high-level coordinated effort to make more children trans and gay.
Yeah.
Well, who's directing that?
Teachers unions and our president and a lot of funding sources, and teachers unions are also heavily backing the curriculum that we're bringing into schools.
Why would they want more kids to be gay and trans?
Because it breaks down the family unit, which breaks down traditional conservative values. It breaks down a lot of things in this country. It changes the way that people think. It changes the way that people handle politics.
Of course, there's no evidence of a coordinated plot to make kids trans.
So a little bit of projection going on there with the Moms for Liberty supporter
That's
at
some
the end there.
bullshit, dude.
Go ahead.
That's some bullshit. That's just some bullshit. That's just bullshit, dude. I call bullshit. Man, when I was in the Marine Corps, there was something called a need to know, okay? And that woman didn't know anything. She was talking out of her ass, bro. Sorry, people, but I mean, do you really believe that a school curriculum is built and based on making 11-year-olds to 17-year-olds queer or trans? Do you really believe that's happening, dude? I mean, someone show me the curriculum where that's happening.
They would tell you that exposure to books that have gay characters, that have sex, any type of sex, but they particularly love to bring up gay sex, will encourage maybe or put a magic spell on a kid to make them gay or make them want to experiment with it, which is an interesting take, which tells me that a lot of them think that, firmly believe that being gay is a choice. And so, first of all, it tells me that they think a lot of people are choosing to live this extremely difficult life where you're bullied to the point that suicide rates are so high, as evident by the next like incident that happened where Nex has been said to have committed suicide from bullying. But we do know that they're at risk, and they get bullied a lot more, and they have a harder life. It's harder to find a place to live. It's harder to get jobs often. So they first think that people choose to do this, but it's also telling that they think that they themselves could be easily convinced to bat for the other team if they are just presented with a few paragraphs from a book. So I'm curious about like how close a bunch of these people are to all of a sudden having their own thruples, or showing up on gay versions of Tinder. So that's another thing entirely. But you're right that like that last lady sounded like nothing but a conspiracy theorist to me. She sounded insane. She sounds like somebody who's rattling off ideas of like lizard people, or the craziest UFO stories that you've heard, and there's no foundation for backing up her claims. She's just giving you a blanket. Well, I know that the president is doing this. I know that teachers unions are doing that. There's these shadowy organizations who are doing this agenda. And I said projection, a whole lot of projection going on from this lady, because the Heritage Foundation is actively funding Moms for Liberty to push this culture war stuff. So in fact, who is the group that's pushing their agenda, who is verifiably, you can look at the financial documents, who is verifiably being funded to push an agenda? Well, show me the documents that show that the president or teachers unions are actively trying to make our children gay. I have yet to see those.
Well, I mean, you're talking about the Heritage Foundation. Dude, these guys are a bunch of goons, man. Dude, where did empathy just left the freaking building, bro? Like
Yep.
Elvis, yeah, empathy. Dude, even sympathy. Either one, or even the C word, compassion.
Yeah.
Like people don't even use those words. They don't even know what they are. They don't. Man. I mean, the bottom line is this country was started a certain way. I mean, this is what it always comes back to, right? I mean, like I know there are people that have been to Africa, and they were like, and these are Black men and women who said like for the first time, I didn't feel out of place because I saw people who looked like me, and then you put us in a situation where, we're staring down the barrel of a gun, crossing the Atlantic Ocean. There are many of us that just jumped off the ship and drowned themselves in the Pacific, in the Atlantic Ocean, because they didn't want to deal with this. Now we're here 300 years later, 400 years later, and we're having to deal with the fact that people can't get past the color of their own skin. Not our skin, their skin. These people have such an issue with being white in this country that it makes everything else in this country just so much worse. You know what I mean? Yeah, I said
Yeah,
it.
I feel like
You know what
I
I
feel
mean?
like this stems.
No.
I don't think that you're wrong, and that this stems from kind of an internal panic from bigots, racists, and not just racists. Like I include all bigots, but racists definitely are the ones pushing the hardest to get these groups to recruit, to push kind of this asymmetrical warfare online, much like Russians and Chinese. Intelligence agents do, to try to disrupt culture and politics, and kind of a trickle down chaos theory here in American society and in American culture. um, the racists are taking advantage of idiots, and bigoted idiots specifically, to also help recruit people into these culture wars. So it's not untrue that there's this kind of panic by white people who are bigoted, who are seeing and have heard for decades now that they're going to lose their majority. They're going to become the minority, one of these days, not in the not too distant future. And it's already happened in specific communities, and you do see a lot of the fear and the hatred that results from this type of change. And you will hear them say, we just heard it in that clip where she goes, all of this stuff that I'm telling you I don't want to see happen, the result of it is change. You could hear her voice, like she was mad and scared at the same time, because having kids learn that it's okay to be LGBTQ, or that it's okay to ask a teacher for help because her parents or his parents or their parents are not supportive of their lifestyle choices. It changes their culture, it changes their outlook. It's a reminder and a quickening that they're going to lose power with the systems that were put in place to maintain that power. The systems that were put in place are the ones you're referring to, that were meant to keep white, rich, old men in power. And now we have those groups actively funding these smaller hate cells to get them to create these culture wars by actively attacking people with hate. We do have some good people out there. We have people pushing back, and I want to show you one of them. This is teacher. She's been a teacher for 20 years. Her name is Liz Ballard, and she confronts Bridget Ziegler, who's one of the co-founders of Moms for Liberty, about and she's that lady that was in the throuple, whose husband got in trouble, or actually skirted trouble. But Bridget lied about her daughter even being in a school district, but gave this like sob story about her daughter and what she had to deal with, in order to stir up this hate in exactly the way we're talking about, where they can't rely on facts and the truth. They have to manufacture outrage for these moral panics. So here is teacher Liz Ballard confronting the hate.
Support is making sure parents, students, and teachers know they belong to a larger community. Instead, Bridget, you have lied about what is going on in our classrooms and how teachers are groomers and indoctrinating students. Support is not going on Fox News to insinuate you pulled your child from the Sarasota County Public Schools because she got in your car and asked you what white privilege was. Never happened. How a sitting school board member managed to tell such a whopper of a lie and get reelected is mind-boggling to me. Support is not making baseless posts on social media claiming that teachers like me aren't doing our jobs. Bridget, you went on Twitter back in November and lamented how it broke your heart that generations of students have learned little about Thomas Jefferson. You have never stepped foot in my classroom. You don't have any kids who go to Sarasota County Public Schools. How on earth would you even possibly know what is actually going on in the classrooms in Sarasota County? You don't, but that has never stopped you in your disinformation campaign.
What do you think about that? Well, I think Rodney's paused, or he's muted. You're muted, Rodney. So yeah, I think it was extremely brave of Liz Ballard to get up there and confront the leader of a very active hate machine that is well funded, and risk her job, risk her safety at home. Um, so I applaud that, and I think that we need more of that. It looks like we've lost Rodney. So if anybody has any willingness, drive, desire to go and run for your local school board or any type of office locally, please do that. There are brave people out there. There are people who are going to help you along the way, help you fight. You will likely be documented, which will help you even further, because there will be people online who will spread the conversation that is actively turning the tide against these hate mongers. So I'm going to go ahead and signal the end of this podcast. Looks like we've lost Rodney, but I appreciate anybody who has gotten through this with us. I have no idea what we're going to talk about next time, but we will. Oh, there's Rodney. Hey.
I have no idea what happened, but here I am.
Okay. That's all right. So basically, she just confronted Bridget and said, "Hey, you don't have any kids here in this county. You said that your daughter confronted you in the car, asking what is white privilege, and that never happened apparently. Um, and this teacher of 20 years confronted her personally and said, "How dare you? And you should be ashamed." But we both know that there is no shame. There is no shame in her heart.
No, there's none, and there never will be. Some people are that way, dude. Some people don't give a flying, you know what? They just don't care.
Yeah.
And that's just the way some people are. And you can, there's no rationalizing it, you know. It's what can you liken it to? It's like this, dude. I'll give you an example. Well, it's not even an example. I was on TikTok last night. I was on this panel, and they were talking about we need to bring them and all this other bullshit. You know, I said a couple things, and the guy wasn't really trying to listen to what I had to say. So there are people out there that have ideas and ideals and morals, and they try to, I don't know, provide, you know, a certain amount of information about what they're feeling, right? Even if they don't make this how I feel and blah blah blah. And you know, he had this one young lady on there, and she was like, you know, the question was, what do you think? Why do you think there's so much crime, and how can we prevent crime and homelessness? And this one young lady said, she goes, the overarching reason there's so much crime is poverty, right? And I'm like, okay, you know, but you know, talk to me about the mafia. They weren't poor. Talk to me about, you know, Jamaican posses. They weren't poor. Talk to me about people who just go out and commit crime. Talk to me about all of the, you know, the very well off. You know, they didn't want to hear it, dude. You know, people have it. Look, what do humans with the most toys, they win. They win, man. There's no in between. There's no, hey, guess what? I know you're from West Virginia and you might be white, but just hang in there. That one of these days that coal mine is going to pay you a lot of money. One of these days that steel mill is going to pay you a lot of money. You know what I mean? Well, guess what? There is no more coal. There is no more steel. We don't make steel here in America anymore. Maybe a little. Baltimore, done. Pittsburgh, the Steelers, done. Cincinnati, Cleveland, bro, Cleveland. I've talked to some guys from that part of the world, and they're just like, it's probably one of the worst cities on the planet. St. Louis, Kansas City, the Midwest, bro. So you're going to tell me that poverty is because 90% of times, no, it's because people can make more money doing illegal things.
Oh, I think you've frozen, or I've frozen, one of the two. Yep, I've got frozen Rodney. Not sure if you can hear me. Well, if you can hear me, Rodney, I'm gonna go ahead and end the live stream, and I'm gonna give you a call on the phone, and just see what we're gonna do for next week. But yeah, this was the American Micro Podcast. Thanks for listening to the Moms for Liberty version, our take on that. Check out our social media. Leave any comments on the videos that you like or don't like. Tell us why. Ask us to do a topic that you want to hear about. So thank you, everybody. We will talk to you next time.